All right, everyone, welcome back into another preseason props video, touching on the top props for the two games on Thursday Night Football. Now, we are going to have props that are coming in throughout the day, today, and also on Thursday. Right now, PrizePicks is very much limiting the players that are out there, so I do think, as it sits right now, we are probably going to want to be looking at Underdog. And the nice thing about Underdog as well is that they actually give us some fantasy points props. To me, that's huge. To me, that kind of adds to the predictability of these good plays that we're going to be on. We don't exactly always know how they're going to get there. We just know that they are good options. So whether that be a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown, a quarterback getting rushing yards, a receiver getting 3 receptions, a receiver catching a bomb, we don't always know how they're going to get there. We just know that they are going to be good plays or good options for us. And as long as we don't have an injury like we had last week with Baldwin, that was so bittersweet because his replacement ended up scoring a touchdown. If he plays, it's a massive day. Still a pretty solid week last week with the Hall of Fame game, DFS-wise and props-wise. Could have been even better. As long as we don't have any injuries, we should be pretty good. I do want to start out with calling this out, the discrepancies here. There's not too many here, okay? And I'm going to go game by game and break down. I'm going to start with the Houston Texans, and we'll see that Chris Stroud on Underdog is actually going to be favored more passing yards, 4 more passing yards than he is on PrizePicks. What I find interesting about that is that you look at a kind of similar prop, Drew Lock, they have him actually 7 less than PrizePicks, which I just found very interesting there. And if we look at that game, not expected to be too high scoring. I mean, it's preseason. They're not going to be too aggressive with these lines, but the Patriots are a team that typically does like to run the ball, run the clock out. Their time of possession is typically pretty high. So it is tough for me to see, this game really being a shootout, I guess. At the same time, could easily happen. I actually like the Patriots a little bit more in this game at the 3.5. They're typically a team that does really well in the preseason, especially in terms of just like being competitive. They don't typically get blown out. Now, last year they did in one of the games, kind of, the years prior to that, they won like 3 out of 4, 3 straight up until like 2018. So in terms of betting, I actually don't mind the plus 142 for the Patriots to win. But looking at it there, let's start with the Texans. So we do know that they have a new head coach. And with that, we don't actually have any preseason tendencies with that. And that's kind of a key thing is like knowing what the coaches tend to do in the preseason. It kind of adds to the predictability there. We do know that Chris Stroud is going to start in this game. The question is, how much playing time is Chris Stroud going to get? And then with that, how much playing time is Davis Mills going to get? And then with that, how much time is Case Keenum going to get? If we look at the props that are available, we will see that they don't really think Davis Mills is going to get that much playing time. I think just based off the fantasy score. And then they actually kind of think Case Keenum has a chance to maybe play the full second half. My expectation would be that Chris Stroud probably plays a quarter in this game. And then with that, Davis Mills would probably come in for the second quarter and then maybe part of the third quarter. We'd have to see on that. And then Case Keenum maybe cleans it up. At the same time, it doesn't really make sense for Case Keenum to get that much playing time. There's the potential that we could get Davis Mills playing a full half of football. And if that occurs, passing for over 68.5 passing yards and passing for more than 3.5 fantasy points, that's really not that hard to do. I wouldn't say that's a lock and load, and that'd be something we could jump on if the news kind of presents itself in that way. Just want to make that kind of clear. That could be a really good one there. But looking at, we know that John Mechie is someone that has been getting a lot of hype out of camp. I don't personally see it too much, but I will say the line that we are getting on him in this game is actually pretty darn good. 17.5 passing yards for a guy that probably is going to play a decent amount, 1.5 receptions, and then 2.65 for the fantasy score. I think that all is a decent prop for someone like him. Now, the one that I actually like a little bit more is going to be receiver Tank Dell, who is a 3rd round receiver pick for them. He's a guy that can get open. And so we'll see this line for him of 1.5 receptions feels a little bit too low for a guy that is kind of being drafted to be a possession receiver for him. And then the 2.65 fantasy score also seems a little bit too low. I do expect him to be able to get 2 receptions, probably not too much, but 2 receptions, over 20 pass or receiving yards should be a good one. And looking at this is just one of the plays that he made in camp. That's just a really good catch to go out and grab that one. And we can see he's kind of a stringy, small guy, a guy that just gets open. That's why I kind of like the 1.5 receptions a little bit more. At the same time, we could easily see him get there with the fantasy score. I like the fantasy score a little bit more, but I do like the fact that he only needs 2 catches to get the over there. With a rookie receiver, they tend to want to get a look. Maybe they give him a little screen, easy reception there. I do expect him to be involved at least. And then with that, I do want to call out that they do have validate an undrafted running back. And I want to just call this out because looking at the running back depth chart, to me, it doesn't actually make too much sense for a lot of them to get playing time. Dameon Pierce, kind of a bruiser running back, the rookie running back from last year, doesn't make sense for him to get too much playing time. Devin Singletary, kind of a veteran guy now. They'll probably get the first half, and even Mike Boone might get the first half as well. And then you got Dare Gumbawale. We know who Dare Gumbawale is as a player. He's a good special teams guy, good guy to have on the roster. But why would he get a lot of work. I would say the expectation would be that Valladay probably plays a full quarter in the fourth quarter. Now, that is not enough for me to really bank on, but maybe you're someone that's trying to run out a game stack. That could be an option for you. Let's go ahead and switch up and get into the Patriots because they are a team that I think we are gaining a decent amount of value on tomorrow, Thursday. So I mentioned that with the Texans, we didn't have any preseason tendencies. Well, with the Patriots, we tend to get some good preseason tendencies out of them. Last year was a little bit different with Josh McDaniels leaving the team. Typically speaking, it had been they just run the football into the ground in the preseason. We actually saw the Patriots throw the football a little bit more. Now, I think that was partially due to a little tiny bit of competition there with Bailey Zappi trying to get a good look at him. But all in all, I do think that they are a team that does give us some predictability. I mean, over years past, they've been like a huge money team in DFS. Now, last year, I want to call it that they did commit to Bailey Zappi. In 2 games last year, he had over 20 passing attempts. That can be huge in terms of production for the quarterback position, but also from the receiver position, which was highly predictable last year. Last year, it was Wilkerson, Nixon, and Humphrey Jordan, and they're all 3 kind of easy plays to predict when they would have good game. And Nixon is actually going to be one that I think we can go back to this year. Now, the biggest question really from this game in terms of preseason profit that we can make is what's going to happen at the quarterback position in terms of playing time. When we look at it, we'll see Mac Jones probably not going to play in this game. Okay, that is going to be good news. The question is how much playing time will Bailey Zappi get? And then as a result, how much time will Trace McSorley get? But really the biggest question comes down to, will Malik Cunningham get a lot of reps at the quarterback position? I could see them going with Bailey Zappi in the first half, which is something that they kind of do. They typically go with 2 quarterbacks and then Trace McSorley in the second half. Then Malik Cunningham really getting the tail end of the game. If that occurs, these props that we are getting for those quarterbacks are actually kind of intriguing. Like I said, last year, Bailey Zappi was a quarterback that passed the ball a lot in the preseason. If we know he's going to get a lot of playing time, that's a very low number for him. And then same thing with Trace McSorley. Now, I do want to call it the reason why his fantasy score is basically the same as Bailey Zappi. Although his passing yards is significantly lower, he's a guy that will run the football. Okay, he probably should get at least, 16 rushing yards or so. Not a terrible one to go with there. But really, to me, the good value that we're going to get out of this game is going to be at the receiver position between Demario Douglas and Trey Nixon. Nixon was someone that really popped last preseason, and I found the fact that he has one of the highest receiving prop lines to be extremely interesting. I was hoping he'd be like a sneaky pick for preseason NFL DFS. This number is telling us that my call on him is probably a good call for preseason NFL DFS. Unless they're just tapping into the 9-to-5 content to make these lines. They could be. Doubt it though. Maybe. You never know. They should be. But really, that tells me that, yeah, he could be someone that we're looking at, especially given the line of 3.75. That is an extremely low line. Typically speaking, a player like Nixon or Douglas, I want to make that clear, it's or Douglas, really goes off. And I actually don't mind the idea of both of them. I mean, Nixon was a guy last year that had 12 receptions, which is pretty good through 3 games, right? And then he also had 169 receiving yards, which is also pretty darn good. The thing with it is he was targeted a heavy amount as well in that offense. So I kind of expect that to continue. So I would say this line that we're getting on him of 3.75 for a fantasy score does seem to be a little bit too low. And now we're not getting any Demario Douglas on Underdog, but we are getting it on PrizePicks. So he is someone that I do like. I was hoping that we would get fantasy score, maybe receptions, although I still would say that 26.5 for the receiving yards for him is a little bit too low. He is someone that has been getting a ton of hype out of camp. I mean, this little route combo is really just sexy. Gets the good leverage on the defender, makes him look stupid, and he's just doing that a bunch. Okay, so that's why I think he's going to be someone that we are looking at. I mean, just good body control out of him. As long as the football can get through on time, he is someone that I expect to go out and really have a strong game, to kind of break out, okay? And he's going to be playing out of the slot, which is typically a coveted position in this offense and in the preseason for the Patriots. Then I do think it's worth calling out they don't have that many running backs listed on their active roster in terms of the running back position. That being said, they do have a decent amount of players that are actually running backs listed at their receiver position, so it does make it a little bit cloudy in terms of the production out of the running back position. Stevenson probably not going to play. I think Kevin Harris was actually listed as the RB2 in this offense, which really doesn't matter. But it wouldn't be surprising to see both Perry Strong and Kevin Harris get a decent amount of work in this one. I just don't really like the lines that we're getting on really at all. And I find this extremely interesting with J.J. Taylor. Yes, he's a good receiving running back. That's a lot. That tells me that we might want to be on him in preseason NFL. All right, so now we get into the Vikings, and guys, the Vikings are going to be a team that I think we should be targeting a decent amount for Thursday in terms of props and NFL DFS for that matter. And I want to start out with just calling out that last year they had Ty Chandler as a top 10 preseason running back. We could very well see something like that happen again, just given the fact that they are a little bit banged up at the running back position. Really, in terms of expected production, I think we're looking at Dwayne McBride, their rookie running back, and then probably Ty Chandler. CJ Ham probably not going to get a lot of work. I wouldn't expect that. So for most of this game, it's probably going to be Dwayne McBride getting a majority of the work, and also Ty Chandler getting a decent amount of work. And for what it's worth, that is what Underdog is expecting as well. But man, 5.2 does seem like a very low number for Dwayne McBride, a guy that is probably going to play a full half of football. Heck, if he doesn't do that, it's going to be extremely disappointing. It's going to be very telling of him as a player. Now, from there, I do want to call it that Jordan Addison has really been lighting it up. He is, to me, has been getting off some Justin Jefferson vibes out of Vikings camp. And what I mean by that is, man, when Jefferson joined the team his rookie year, he really took the camp by storm. I mean, just incredible hype coming from him, and the plays that we saw on Twitter and whatnot, the coverage on it was standing out, and that is exactly what's happened with Jordan Addison again. And I would say his lines that we were getting are pretty low as well. When we look at the lines in comparison that we're getting on Jordan Addison between PrizePicks and Underdog, this line of 14.5 for Jordan Addison to me seems to be a little bit too low. All that takes is one catch. I do expect him to play a first quarter or so. That is not to be confirmed yet. We do need to have that confirmed. That's where the risk is coming there. But if he plays a full quarter, that's going to be what? Let's say 2 to 4 drives, probably 3. He should be able to get there. So not a terrible thought there. It's just a very low number. And they probably do want to get him a little bit involved, get him a little bit of action for the and just get an NFL game experience, right? And then from there, really what I want to call out is that they really committed to 2 quarterbacks last year getting playing time, with Kellen Mond, the third string quarterback, getting a majority of the reps. And we have already seen quotes coming out from the head coach that is probably going to occur again with Jaren Hall. So not only is he going to be someone that, could play a full half of football, I kind of expect that to occur, maybe even more than that. We have seen this type of quarterback from the Vikings head coach get a decent amount of passing attempts or get a decent amount of usage. He's a quarterback that can actually run the football as well. So to me, this fantasy score line that we're getting of him of 6 for a fantasy score does seem to be a little bit too low, but also the rushing yards seems to be a little bit too low as well. Just given the fact that he is a quarterback that can rush. Let's say he does add, and I would say probably 2 points rushing the football. I would say it's going to be tough for him not to get the over fantasy score. I do expect him to be able to score a touchdown in some capacity, whether it be throwing the football or rushing the football. To me, he's one of my favorite DFS plays. Thus, he's going to be one of my favorite prop bets as well. To me, it's trying to figure out whether I want to do rushing yards or whether I want to do fantasy points. I have been defaulting 2 fantasy points, although I will say the rushing yards of 14.5 does seem to be extremely low. From there, my biggest issue kind of at the receiver position is we don't really know what to expect. I would assume Brandon Powell is going to get a decent amount of playing time, and Jalen Reagor, I feel like they kind of know what they have in him, although he is someone that is certainly fighting for a roster spot, and that's never a bad thing to target those type of players. And then for what it's worth, they did pick up Abraham Smith as well, the guy that they just picked up this week, because they needed some depth at the running back position. But I do still think it's going to be Dwayne McBride getting the majority of the work. So now from there, we go ahead and get into the Seahawks. The Seahawks are going to be another one of those teams I think are going to be a little bit more predictable for Thursday Night Football. Last year, they were top 5 in passing attempts. That's kind of huge for preseason. Now, I do think that was partially due to the fact that they did have a quarterback battle between Geno Smith and Drew Lock going on. Now, Drew Lock kind of got banged up as well, so we didn't exactly see a true quarterback competition there. But we did see those quarterbacks get a decent amount of reps. They were also top 10 rushing yards total last year. Now, not rushing attempts too much, but there is the potential that we are going to get some good running back value here because they are already a little bit banged up. We know that Walker's out. McIntosh is going to be out as well, their rookie running back. So that's going to mean that some of these other guys are going to get a decent amount of work, it seems like. And then for what it's worth, just talking about the quarterback position, it does seem that Drew Lock's going to get a full half of football. And then Holton Ayers, I think that's how you say his name, is also probably going to get a full half of football as well. Both of them looked pretty good in their mock game. They had a mock game on Friday night. Both of them looked good. Both of them had productive stats. You can see their stats right there. Drew Lock went 10 for 15 with 171 yards. Holton went 5 for 7, 68 yards and a touchdown. And a lot of the production out of the receiver position actually came out of Jake Bobo, who we're not getting any props for just yet. So let's go ahead and touch on the props that we are getting. And I want to start off with saying, just remember that we do have this prop line difference here. This is kind of a big prop line difference, I would say. The reason why we're getting this number is, I would say, the expectation is that Drew Lock is going to play a full half of football. Now, to me, I don't really know why we would see Geno Smith play in this game. I'm not sure that's been confirmed just yet, but that is why we were getting these big prop lines for Drew Lock. Now, I mentioned the one I want to be on is going to be Polzin here, and this is a number that I jumped on when it first came out. The question is, do I want to jump on the passing yards? I would say I kind of do. If he does play that full half of football, it's just going to be tough to imagine them not letting him throw the football a little bit. It's just whether or not he completes those yards. I do like this a little bit because he does have a little tiny bit of rushing upside. Not too much. I mean, he's not going to really kill you with the legs, but it is there. And for what it's worth, the Bobo prop that I really like, it's not there. As a play, I think it's going to be a good play, but we're not getting any props for him. So Thompson would probably be the next best one, who we did see. He went and had 4 receptions for 54 yards in that mock game. That's not a true indication of really anything, I would say, but at the same time, not a bad thing. A guy that's getting some hype out of camp, and he produced when we last saw him in a game like scenario, and that's really the best information that we have available. So I did mention, we are getting a lot of running back props for them. I don't know. I would say DJ Dallas is someone we could maybe look at, but all in all, we're probably just be forcing in some of these props that are out. So with that being said, it's going to get into my bets of the day. Looking at Underdog, this is probably going to be my favorite one as it sits right now. Obviously, these lines are going to be changing throughout the night, but Trey Nixon, he's someone that I do expect to go off. I was hoping we'd actually get Demario Douglas. If we get a similar line for Demario Douglas on Underdog, I would say we take advantage of that. Dwayne McBride, he's someone that I do expect to get a decent amount of work in this game, probably a full half of football. That's highly intriguing. And then same thing for Jaron Hall. Now, I want to call this out. These two do not correlate, right? It's kind of the unfortunate side of it. That's kind of the unfortunate side of preseason. Sometimes you are making plays that just don't correlate because we're chasing playing time. It's like NBA DFS. We're chasing the minutes here. And there are 2 players that are expected to get a half of football. And it wouldn't be too crazy, I guess, to see both of them get there. And I would say if those 2 players are playing in the second half and they both do get their overs, then Holton would also have to pass the ball a little bit more, right? There's maybe a little bit of correlation there. And so thus the passing yards over, I don't mind there as well. And then for PrizePicks, I will admit this is a little bit risky just due to the fact that we don't exactly know what the playing time is going to be like for Bailey Zappi. I want to make that very clear. He's the biggest worry here. But the fact that 2 of the players I really like are Demario Douglas and Trey Nixon, we're already betting the over receiving yards for them, thus betting the over for someone like Bailey Zappi does make some sense. Now, I do think Trace McSorley has a decent amount of playing time, and Malik Cunningham, it's very much a question mark whether he's going to play a lot. Heck, he could end up playing receiver. We don't know that for the Patriots. So that is very much the risk part of this, but I do think there is some sort of correlation there given the fact that he is their quarterback. If you just want to run out these first 3, you can do that as well. But I do want to call out that I do like Underdog a little bit more just because we are getting those fantasy score-based props. And then lastly, just to close out the video, want to remind you guys of the promo that is going on the 95 website right now. You guys did see that discrepancies cheat sheet that just highlights all the top props on the day and comparing the discrepancies between PrizePicks and Underdog. The promo code is playoffs, and that's going to be for the PGA Tour playoffs. They are in the playoffs right now. It's going to go up until the Tour Championship, which we still have 3 weeks there. It's 50% off your first month membership, and that's going to be for new members only. So it's a $10 membership. Get it for $5. But that's going to be all, guys. Just make sure to give a like and subscribe. Honestly, that does help with the channel a lot, especially in the preseason where we're trying to kick off the NFL coverage. I want to come off and really just dominate this preseason, dominate the NFL season. And the only way I can do that is by you guys supporting the channel. The more likes, the more subscribes I get on this specific content, the more I can pump out to you guys. And I want to do that. So help me help you. But that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, you know what to do. Get that like and subscribe. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.